All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of my never-ending quest to provide more information for the AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course and the AWD 1111 Database-Driven Websites or Web Development course, I've been creating a series of video presentations that are based off of the ebooks written by Mr. Flavio Copes. And so far I've done his HTML ebook and his CSS ebook, and I'm working my way through his JavaScript ebook. All right, in the last thing of examples, I created these loops, and let's talk about a couple things in here. So I've got these things here. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say this. For whatever reason, I'm going to pick on the number 7. So I'm going to say if LCV equal 7, and if that's the case, I'm going to break. That's going to change. So now I'm not going to output all this. I'm going to output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to break. So break breaks you out of the loop that you're in. Okay? All right, since I'm in a for loop here, it'll break me out of it. Now, if instead of break, I put in here continue, then what's going to happen when it reaches 7, it's going to skip the rest of this loop iteration. So it's going to skip all this stuff. So it's not going to print 7, but it's going to go back up to the top, add 1 to it. So this will be my output. So if I want to skip a loop iteration or part of a loop iteration, I can use continue. If I want to get totally out of the loop, I can use break. All right. And the only one that we did not look at last time that is in here is the for of loop. And as it says, it's a simplified version of a for loop. Now, I believe you can only use this, and I could be wrong. Heck, I'm wrong probably more often than I'm right. But I believe that when you use this, it's meant to be used with collections. So I think you need to use it with an array. So I don't know if I tried doing something like this. So if I tried to replace this for loop here, let's say, with this for loop. So if I say for, I'm going to get rid of this, all of this here. I don't think this would work. I think you need to use it with an array. So let's take a look at the example that they have in here. All right, so we've got an array called list, and it's got members in it A, B, and C. Okay, so what we're doing is we're telling it to loop through the list, and else what I called LCV, they're calling value. Whenever you find a value, print it out. So this should print out A, B, C. All right. All right, let's jump into functions. Functions are kind of a neat thing. There's simple functions and there's complex functions. So let's talk about first a simple function. So I'm going to write myself in here. I'm going to write a function. All right, so I'm going to write it was the word function. I'm going to call it add2, and it expects 2 numbers. And what this function does is it returns n1 plus n2. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to call the function a few times. I'm going to say alert. In fact, not even an alert. Let's just say let someone equals add2, and we're going to give it a 45 and 67. And let sum2 equal add2, and we're going to give it 63 and 18. I'm plucking these numbers literally out of thin air. And finally, let sum3 equal add2, and we're going to put in here 12 and 91. All right, and then we'll say alert sum1, alert sum2, oops, and alert sum3. Okay, so what are these going to do? Well, this is going to call add 2, and 45 will now be N1. 67 will now be N2. So it'll add 67 and 45, which if I did my math right, will give 112. So this will return 112 and it'll be stuffed into there. Then we do it again. 63 becomes N1. 18 becomes N2. 63 plus 18, which is this, is 81. So this will become 81. And then finally, we do it again. And N1 is 12, N2 is 91. 12 plus 91, if I did my math right, is 103. So that's what we'll have. Hopefully now you're already seeing one of the values of writing functions. I can call these repeatedly, but give them different values. So I can have the same code handle more than one case, for example. Okay? Now, that's a simple function declaration right there. Okay? There's other kinds that you can use too that I'm sure are going to be shown in here. You can pass nothing into a function. You can pass one parameter. You can pass two parameters. You can pass as 0 ... n, meaning as many parameters as you need to pass in. In my particular function, I was returning values. The sum of the two numbers I got passed in, but you don't have to return anything either. If you don't return anything, literally what gets returned is the value undefined. There's nothing returned. Functions can be defined inside of other functions. So here's a function that's defined inside of this function. All right, a little confusing. All right, but you can also return a function from a function. That's a little confusing. All right, so let's jump into this. All right. Now, I already showed you the function here. All right, this function. Let's rewrite this as an arrow function right there. Okay. So I'm just going to grab it right here. And it's pretty simple. Now, I just want to double check and see how they did this here. Okay. I think this is the way we would do this. We would say just add 2, n1 and n2, and equal, greater than. And then all we have to do, we don't even need the word return. If it's just a one-line function like this, we can just write that. Now, I don't know if you agree. That's a heck of a lot more compact. All right. Now, if we're passing in nothing here, if we're passing in nothing, we're not, but if we were, you still need to set up parentheses. If you're only passing in one number, you actually don't need the parent. You can just put the number out there, but I do it like this anyway. I believe that what I've shown you there is correct. All right. This is considered more to be the newfangled way of doing this. And especially when you start working with JavaScript on the server side, which is what we will be doing in the AWD 1111 class, we'll be doing it this way almost exclusively. All right, but that's what's referred to as, excuse me, an arrow function. All right. And I think I'm trying to figure out I guess I've not written a arrow one the way I just showed it to you. See, here it's a little bit different. So I may have shown it to you incorrectly. I would never do that on purpose, but I may have done it. Let's see. So if we sit here, const add 2 like this equals, I think that's correct with the fat arrow. That's what they're showing here. Okay. Now, this is old school. This is new school. Here, this is a function that's returning a value. So is this, but add 2 is actually a variable that's returning the value of the function now. And I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but that's just the way that this works. Yeah, you can use default parameters. I don't want to get into those now. Arrow function can return other arrow functions. Yep. So let's quickly talk a little bit about objects here. An object, as it says, it's something that's not a primitive type. All right. So we can define an object in 2 ways. We can define it like this and put some stuff in between these curly braces, or we can do it like this, or we can actually even do it like this. We can also use the new keyword to do it. All right. So let's grab all of this code, everything that they've got here, and then let's take a look at it. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to put that in here. All right. So let's see. Get rid of that. All right. So what I'm doing in here is I am creating a new car object. Ford will be passed in as the brand. Fiesta will be passed in as the model. So if I did an alert where I said basically I wanted you to print out the brand, as they mentioned there, it would print out Ford. And if I did it another alert and I said alert mycar.model, it would print out Fiesta. And actually it wouldn't print these out in the quotes. So it would print out Fiesta like that. All right, now those are simplistic examples. And I thought they were going to give a better example in here than the one they've given, but so far at least they have not. Now objects, when you create objects, they have properties and they have methods. So let's redo this so it looks more, all right, I don't like the way this looks at all. So I'm going to come in and try to do it more like this. All right, so I'm going to put in const. I'm not going to be able to do it like this. I want to be able to keep this, but I want to use their newer syntax. So let's see. On here, we used car.brand, which is totally fine. But we could have also rewritten these 2 lines, just so you know. We could have said my car bracket brand bracket and my car bracket model bracket, and that would have printed out what you see there as well. And that would have had to have had the quote. So in other words, this and this would print out the same thing, and this would print out the same thing. All right, what I wanted to show you in here, and what I was hoping they would have, is what has happened over time is when you start writing these, when you start writing object-oriented code in JavaScript, you can make it look much more like it looks in other languages. There's nothing wrong with this. All right, we're creating an object variable right here called car, and it's got a value of blue. All right, but we can change its value if we want to. And we can add new properties to it as well. All right, and we can get rid of what's in there. That's all fine. Now, objects can also have methods. What's a method? A method is basically a function that's inside of an object. All right, and you do it differently based on how you've created the object. And I'm making it sound, I believe at least, more confusing than it is. But there's a start with function, okay? And there's a start where we replace that function with an arrow function. All right? Okay. Now, this is what's fairly new in here. Do I have time? Yes, I do. And that is talking about classes. All right? Now, this, to say class like this is much more. If I'm going to learn classes in object-oriented programming in JavaScript, I'm going to do it this way. And the reason that I'm going to do it this way is this is much more similar to the way that object-oriented programming is done in other languages. All right? And I'm going to show you, I wanted to show it there's, okay, that'll work for the example. Okay. So what I was showing you here, that probably will work, but I would not do it that way. Instead, I would be doing it more like this. All right, so I'm going to rewrite that like this. So I'm going to say class car, and again, we're going to put in brand and model, like that. Constructor name, all right, and so that'll be constructor brand model, and we'll say this dot brand equal brand, and this dot model equals model. Now, when I create a new car, so when I come in here and do something like this, and I say my car equal new car, I'm passing in Ford, which becomes the brand. I'm passing in Fiesta, which becomes the model. Since it's brand new, since I'm creating it right here, it automatically calls the constructor, and it passes in that brand right here. This brand that you see right here, this is going to be this, and this model here is going to be this. It's going to copy this brand or this variable to this, and it's going to copy this variable, which is that, to this. And when I print it out, it is going to print this. And I don't know, you probably can still use these. I have never used those. I always just do it like this. And that should print out Ford, and it should print out Fiesta. Now, I may have confused you. That was not my intention. So if I did, I'm sorry. All right. When you are working with classes, you can have inheritance, where a class can inherit from another class. What does that mean? Inheritance is what's typically referred to as an is-a relationship. For instance, I could have created a class called vehicle, and then what happens? A car is a vehicle. But then I could have made a truck class because a truck also is a vehicle. So that's an example of what you do if you are using inheritance and you use the word extends. So if I were to go in and create, if I would have originally created a class called vehicle, then I could have said class car extends vehicle. So here a programmer is a person just like a car is a vehicle. And then everything that I created in vehicle would be available to car. That's inheritance. All right. Okay, this is a great place to stop at asynchronous programming and callbacks. All right, so I'll pick it up there in the next lesson.